Hello. Okay. Hello, welcome back to One Day in My Life as a Plant Parent. And today we're going to be starting a plant care series of the plants that I'm most comfortable taking care of or is thriving in my care. So I want to share with you the tips that I do in order to keep them lush and very healthy and thriving in my space. Starting with the Philodendron Hederaceum. I have 3 philodendrons right now. The lemon lime, mycans, and also the latest one is the Philodendron Brazil. But I would like to do a deep dive on each of this because although they are in the same Philodendron Hederaceum family, so they do have some differences in their care. Starting with my most favorite philodendron, which is the lemon lime. I mean, look at that. I really like plants that has a pop of color, but this plant does have some specks of green. I really like it when they do give me little speck of green, like maybe they need to photosynthesize more. And like this has this speck of green, and also this, so beautiful. Sometimes, I don't know, this is like for me variegated. I have a lot of intrusive thoughts. Before we get to the care tips, I just want to say that I do recommend getting this plant as cuttings. So if you have a friend that has them, you can propagate from them. Or if you buy them, it's better to buy them in their nursery pots, not yet in their lush, like very bushy state. For me, only because one, it's so nice to see them grow and thrive in your care, and second, because it's easier to acclimate them in your home if you start them as small cuttings or in nursery pots. When I got this plant, it was only 4 to 5 leaves, and it was even a bit struggling. You can still see here, this is one of the original leaf that it has, and you can see how battered it is. It looks sad when I first got it, but I got it, and because of that I got it on discount, and now it is living its best life in my care. So let's get on the care tips, starting with light. This plant, it prefers bright indirect light, but I do keep my plant right by my southwest facing window, which receives harsh afternoon light. But anyway, as I mentioned, because I got this as a small plant, it acclimatized to this area. And once it did, it grew really fast for me during the summer. And as you can see, as a result of that really bright, direct afternoon light, the nodes are really shorter in between the leaves. But take it with a grain of salt. If you get this plant and you find it that it is crisping, if how the leaves are turning out. This plant can tolerate lower light condition, but as mentioned, if you do put it in lower light condition, maybe you would notice longer nodes, longer stems in between the leaves. Okay, so just be prepared with that. Because this has a lighter green color, it will really benefit from bright light. Unlike its other sisters or brothers like the mycans or the green heartleaf plant. Next is soil. This plant really enjoy airy and chunky soil mix. If it's available for you, you can put this in a cocoa peat soil mix, cocoa peat, perlite, orchid bark soil mix. But for me, my plant is just in ordinary potting soil and orchid bark. I'm not really as crazy as I was before in terms of the potting mix anymore because of lack of space and resources. So I need my plants to thrive with the care that I am giving them. I need it to be as low maintenance as I am, which means I don't have grow lights right now and I cannot afford to customize my own potting mix. I did not even put perlite in this mix. But what you can also do to aerate your soil, which I also do sometimes, is to just stick a chopstick and put air pockets in the soil. Next is water. Watering this plant is like watering your epipremium, but for me, I discovered that what works best is to not let it dry out for long periods of time. It is a very forgiving plant. If you do forget to water it, it can bounce back, but it does like some moisture. That's why cocoa peat is a recommendation in terms of the potting medium of this plant because that retains more moisture. This nursery pot actually doesn't go until the bottom of this pot, which resulted to some water which resulted that if I water this, some water will stay at the bottom. And because this already has, is actually root bound maybe, has roots growing at the bottom, it does absorb the water again. So I don't throw out the water in case it gets stuck here. I just let it sit there and wait for the plant to drink it when it likes to drink water. A general tip is to once in a while water them in the sink and like shower them, not just to wash the leaves but also to drain all the mineral buildups of tap water that could have accumulated through months or years of water, especially if you have hard water. Signs of overwatering would be yellow leaves. So if you see that the bottom leaves are turning yellow, try to hold back on watering. And signs of underwatering is that the leaves will turn crispy. But don't mistake this one as dry leaves. So maybe sometimes you will notice this. These are just natural. Not sure. So it's like it's cocoon. Whenever a new leaf grows, it leaves behind this thing. So satisfying to do that. Sometimes you get bored and you just want to be overbearing plant parents. I also don't have a water meter. I personally think that they don't work. I tried it before and I prefer the finger method. Or what you can also do is to stick a toothpick inside and see there. As you can see, for me, this measures better. So if the toothpick comes out like this, it's still wet, don't water. Okay. Which brings us to humidity. Since this is a tropical plant, it does like at least 50% humidity. I hang my clothes inside the room and let them dry inside my room. I think that it does increase humidity in my room. Another thing that you can do is spraying them to increase humidity on the leaves. Next on the care tips is fertilizing. I normally fertilize my plant every watering because it's so hard to recall the last fertilizing day. And I can fertilize my plant more frequently because I use organic fertilizer. Bio Crescita Miraculosa, like miracle growth. It says miracle growth when I was in the Philippines, I just use regular also organic fertilizer like fish fertilizer. So anything that is organic can be used more frequently. Okay, maybe I would hold back on fertilizing this now that it's getting cold, only because the watering will also be not as frequent. I have to admit, this is going to be my first winter as a plant parent. I have read that during the winter, of course, you do water less and you don't fertilize, or you do not repot your plant. But I've also seen plant parents repot their plant or fertilize them during the winter. So we'll see. I'll update you after the winter, during the winter, what happened to the plants. Okay? Hopefully we'll survive together. Anyway, the next tip is propagation. And I must say I have propagated this plant multiple times already. The only reason that it is not longer is because I did propagate it. And I think it also benefited from constant pruning. When I cut it, 2 or 3 growth points activated. Of course, only one of those growth points will continue growing, but it was amazing to see 2 growth points activating. I will show you an example of that here. Actually amazing. This growth point is both still continuously growing at the same time. Okay, propagating this plant is the same as propagating an epipremium. You just cut it just below the node here. Let it callus for 30 minutes. Put that in water, and then once it grows an inch or two of roots, you can plant it and keep the soil moist. First, you will notice that they will grow and establish their roots. Then once they have finished establishing their roots, then they will start to grow you the leaf. There is already an growth point here, which leads us to how to make your lemon lime bushier. So aside from propagating, so you propagate, you put it in water, then you put it back in the mother plant. Or another thing that you can do is, once it starts trailing like this, put it back in contact with the soil, because these nodes, as you can see, can start growing roots, and once it establishes roots, it can have its separate growth point. So I put it back in soil, I bobby pin it in place, and so far that has worked for me. For this plant specifically, as you can see, there are multiple growth points from a single vine, because each of the nodes have established their root system. Or another thing that you can do is to grow it in a moss bowl. So once it starts trailing, you can actually attach this to a moss bowl, and then these roots will hold on to those moss poles, and in return the leaves will get bigger. As you can see, the leaves on my plant are getting a bit smaller because it doesn't have a moss pole to grow into, but for now that's how I like to grow it. So I would like a bushy trailing plant, but maybe I would consider, if once I get this established, I will try to also grow it in a moss bowl where it can grow bigger leaves. So that's it for the Philodendron Lemon Lime. I do encourage you to get one. It's so easy to care for. If you already have one and you want a bushier plant, I hope my tips would work for you. And if you have other recommendations or tips for me, please do share them in the comment down below. And thank you for spending another planty day with me, and I'll see you in another. Bye!